emerge until the end of the session. Even Michael Schumacher, who went off yesterday and knocked a wheel off the car, lost control on the very, very slippery, almost impossible conditions. Because this track has been completely resurfaced, it's very smooth. And a tremendous spin from the Williams of David Coulthard.
Yes, one of the problems this morning was the fact that on this very wet surface, with the track having only been resurfaced some 6 weeks ago, the oil in the track was starting to come through, and that meant it really was treacherously slippery, and it's very hard indeed for the drivers to keep their cars on the circuit. And the Williams boys had a particularly hard job, because the Williams car was seen to be set up rather stiffly, and the stiffer springs that it has on a car, the less grip you have in wet conditions. And so what we heard about with teams looking at revising suspension settings in view of the drying weather was all about Williams looking at going back to the dry conditions that we've got here. Now, of course, preparing for a Grand Prix is a stressful time for drivers at the best of times. And this weekend, they've got the memory of the hazards and dangers of Grand Prix racing to contend with, as we saw just then. But they've got another problem too, and that's the unpredictability of quite what's going to happen now. If the weather's going to be completely dry, the drivers know just how the cars are going to be handling. If it's going to be completely wet, they know the same. And indeed, the difference from dry conditions to wet is about 30 seconds a lap round here. We had a pole position from Michael Schumacher of 1:27, and the fastest time in this morning's wet warm-up from Jean Alesi on a 1:57. So 30 seconds difference, and the bulk of the reason for that, it comes down to the grip, of course, and that's the difference between wet tyres and dry. Now the drivers know that the track they're about to start this Grand Prix on, it's not dry, it is still wet, or certainly very damp, and it looks like they're probably going to start off the race on their wet weather tyres and then come in for the first of their scheduled pit stops for fuel to put on slick tyres. Now, normally we'd expect to see either 2 or 3 pit stops in a race like this. It's a 63-lap race, and that means those who intend to make 2 stops would stop firstly around about lap 21 and secondly lap 42 in a simple division of the race distance, with 3 stops, starting the stops maybe lap 15, lap 32 for the second, and finally lap 48. Now, it would seem to be logical that as the track is almost certain to dry out, I think the chances of further